Namaste. Dear viewers, welcome to the lecture series on food technology. Today, the topic wine will be discussed. The topic wine will be studied under the following subunits. 1. Introduction. 2. Classification of wine. 3. Process in winemaking. 4. Wine defects. And last, 5th, health benefits and disadvantages of wine. Introduction. A simple definition of wine is the fermented juice of the grape. Nevertheless, any fruit with a good proportion of sugar may be used for wine production. Thus, citrus, banana, apple, pineapple, strawberries, etc. may all be used to produce wine. Such wines are always qualified as fruit wines. If the term is not qualified, then it is regarded as being derived from grapes Vitis vinifera. The production of wine is simpler than that of beer in that no need exists for malting since sugars are already present in the fruit juice being used. This, however, exposes winemaking to greater contamination hazards. Wine is today principally produced in countries or regions with mild winters, cool summers, and an even distribution of rainfall throughout the year. In North America, the United States is the leading producer, most of the wine coming from the states of California and some from New York. In Europe, the principal producers are Italy, Spain, and France. In South America, Argentina, Chile, and Brazil are the major producers. And in Africa, they are Algeria, Morocco, and South Africa. Other producers are Turkey, Syria, Iran, and Australia. India is rapidly emerging wine economy in terms of both production and consumption and has the potential to become a significant player on the world wine scene. This may be predicted from the fact that the country has consistently experienced the highest growth in consumption in the world, that is around 20 to 30% a year between 2002 and 2010. Wine has been produced for thousands of years. The earliest form of grape-based fermented drink, however, was found in northern China, where archaeologists discovered 9,000-year-old pottery jars. The earliest evidence of wine to date was found in the Republic of Georgia, where 8,000-year-old wine jars were uncovered. Traces of wine have also been found in Iran with 7,000 years old wine jars and in America with the 6,100-year-old. Wine had been reached the Balkans by 4,500 BC and was consumed and celebrated in ancient Greece, Thrace, and Rome. It has been consumed for its intoxicating effects throughout history, and the psychoactive effects are evident at normal serving sizes. The history of wine and winemaking is as old as civilization itself. Stories abound about how wine was first discovered, and one of the more delightful tells of a mythical Persian king called Jamshid. At his court, grapes were kept in jars for eating out of season. One jar was discarded because the juice had lost its sweetness and the grapes were deemed to be poisonous. A damsel of the king's harem was suffering from nervous headaches and tried to take her life with the so-called poison. She fell asleep, to awake later feeling revived and refreshed. She told everyone what she had done and of the miraculous cure. And thereupon a quality of wine was made, and Jamshid and his court drank of the new beverage. The great civilization of ancient Greece and Rome trace wine back into their prehistory with similar legends about its discovery. Ancient Egypt has left us wine lists and wall paintings. Indeed, they even recorded the vintage, vineyard, and winemaker on individual jars of wines. The world of wine has grown enormously in the past 20 years, and its international face and accompanying taste have changed beyond recognition. During the Vedic period of Indian history, that is 2500 to 200 BC, based originally around the Indus river system, wine was worshipped as the liquid god Soma because of its medicinal attributes. The Hindus' most ancient sacred text, called the Vedas, credited Soma with great medicinal powers. Another Hindu sacred text in the Rig Veda, which contained hymns praising Soma, such as "This is Soma, who flows wine, who is strength giving, and the god Soma heals whatever is sick, makes the blind see and the lame walk." Thus, by the end of 20th century, wine was established as a medicine in continental Europe and Australia, although the temperance movement had eroded its position in the UK and the USA. Since then, the scientific evidence on wine as a medicine has multiplied enormously, especially during the past decade. Classification of wines. Grape wines may be classified in several ways. Some of the criteria include place of origin, color, alcohol content, and sweetness. This system classifies wine into two groups: natural wines and fortified wines. Natural wines, 9 to 14% alcohol, nature and keeping quality mostly dependent on complete yeast fermentation and protection from air. 1. Still wines, known as table wines, intended as a part of meal, no carbon dioxide added. Dry table wines, no noticeable sweetness. White, rose, red sweet table wines are the dry table wines. Further, naming of above depends on grape type or region of origin. Sparkling wines, appreciable carbon dioxide under pressure. A. White champagne, rose pink champagne, red sparkling burgundy, cold duck. Fortified wines, that is dessert and appetizer wines, contain 15 to 21% alcohol. Nature and keeping quality depends heavily on addition of alcohol distilled from grape wine. Sweet wines, white muscatel, white port, Angelica. B. Pink California Tokay, tawny port. C. Red port, black muscat. 2. Sherries, white sweet or dry wines with oxidized flavors. A. Aged types, B. Float types, C. Baked types. And the 3. Flavored specialty wines, usually white port base. A. Vermouth, pale, dry, French, Italian sweet types. B. Proprietary brands. The natural wines, these results from complete natural fermentation. Further, fermentation is prevented because the sugar is to a large extent exhausted. Spoilage microorganisms such as acetic acid bacteria do not grow if air is excluded. Owing to the natural limit of sugar in grapes, the alcohol content does not usually exceed 12%. They are still subdivided into still without added carbon dioxide and sparkling with added carbon dioxide. Table wines. In general, the natural wines are usually consumed at one sitting once they are opened. For this reason, they are called table wines and intended to be part of a meal. They are usually served in generous amounts, partly because they contain less alcohol than the desserts and appetizers, and partly because they do not have a high keeping quality once open compared with appetizers and dessert wines. Dessert and appetizer wines. The second broad group of wines are dessert or appetizer wines. As can be seen from their names, they are served at the beginning appetizers or at the end dessert of meals. They contain extra alcohol from distilled wines, partly to make them more potent, but also to preserve them from yeast spoilage. They are divided into three categories: A. Sweet, for example port; sherries, for example sweet or dry. They are originated from Portugal and are characterized by flavors induced by various degrees of oxidation. C. Flavored wines, for example vermouth. These are flavored with herbs and other components which are secretes of the producing forms. Sparkling wines. Sparkling wines contain carbon dioxide under pressure before they are opened. They are called sparkling because gentle release of carbon dioxide from the wine after the bottle is opened gives a wine a sparkle. The best known of the sparkling wine is produced in Champagne region in northern France, which has given its name to the wine. Fortified wines. In other wines, contact with oxygen, no matter how small, is undesirable. The fortified wines are, however, produced by the deliberate but controlled oxidation of wine. The oxidation is achieved by prolonged aging in the pressure of air, by the growth of anaerobic yeast, or by heating. The consequence of this oxidation is a product which has a dark, reddish brown color with a characteristic flavor. Whether the starting wine is white or red. For sherry, therefore, a white wine is used, but the port or Madeira, a red or a white wine, may be used. All the three fortified wines have a high alcohol content of ranging from 15 to 25% volume by volume, derived from added alcohol, hence their name. They are usually separated into two groups: vermouth and other flavor wines, that is special natural wines. Fruit wines, that is cider and perry. Often fruits do not contain enough sugar to make a potent alcoholic beverage. Under such conditions, extra sugar in the form of sucrose is added to encourage fermentation. Fruit wines are popular in some countries where grapes cannot thrive. Cider is derived from apples, Malus pumila, and perry from pears, or a mixture of pears and apples. They differ from other fruit wines in that their alcohol content is low, that is 4 to 5% with a maximum of 7 to 8% volume by volume, because sugar is not usually added. Fruit wines have been made from cashew, pineapples and other fruits. Palm wine. Palm wine is a general name for alcoholic beverages produced from the saps of the palm trees. It differs from the grape wines in that it is opaque. It is drunk all over the tropical world in Africa, Asia and South America. Palm wine is usually a whitish and effervescent liquid, both of which properties derive from the fact that the fermenting organisms are numerous and alive when the beverage is consumed. The sap of the palm is obtained from a variety of positions: the stem of the standing tree, the tip or trunk of the felled tree, and the base of the immature male inflorescence. Which method is favored depends on the country concerned, but most studies have centered on inflorescence wine. The sap produced by this method in Aelius guineensis contains about 12% sucrose, about 1% of each of fructose, glucose and raffinose and other small quantities of protein and some vitamins, and is a clear, sweet, syrupy liquid. To produce palm wine, a succession of microorganisms occurs roughly: gram-negative bacteria, lactic acid bacteria, yeast and finally acetic acid bacteria. The organisms are not artificially inoculated with find their way to the wine from the variety of sources including the air, the tapping utensils including previous brews and the tree. The wine contains about 3% alcohol, and since the bacteria and yeast are consumed live, it is a source of single cell protein and various vitamins. Process in wine making. Although so-called wine can be made from other fruits, in this context it is the grape alone that counts. There is no other fruit that can provide such a wonderfully diverse and complex drink with such infinite variations of flavor. It is many faceted drink, enjoyable in its youth yet capable of considerable longevity. It enhances any social occasions, inducing conviviality and conversation. It can turn a humble picnic into a feast or a simple dinner into a banquet. While in rural communities in countries worldwide, wines have from time immemorial been produced from all manner of plant materials and not only fruits. I restrict discussion in the present subtopic to the products of commercial entities furnishing wines based on the grape. Crushing of grapes. Selected ripened grapes are crushed to release the juice, which is known as must, after the stalks which supports the fruits have been removed. These stalks contain tannins which would give the wine a harsh taste. The skin contains most of the materials which give wine its aroma and color. For the production of red wines, the skins of the black grapes are included to impart the color. The chief sugars in grapes are glucose and fructose. In ripe fruits, they occur in about the same proportion. Grape juice has an acidity of 0.60 to 0.65% and a pH of 3 to 4, mainly due to malic and tartaric acids with a little citric acid. Fermentation by yeast. The grapes themselves harbor a natural flora of microorganisms that is called the bloom, which in previous times brought about the fermentation and contributed to the special characters of various wines. Nowadays, the must is partially sterilized by the use of sulfur dioxide, a bisulfate or a metabisulfate, which eliminates most microorganisms in the must, leaving wine yeasts. Yeasts are then inoculated into the must. The yeast which is used is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and other yeast which have been used for special wines are Saccharomyces fermentati and Saccharomyces oeiformis. Wine yeast have the following characteristics: growth at the relatively high acidity, that is low pH of grape juice, resistant to high alcohol content higher than 10% and resistance to sulfite. Aging and storage. The fermentation is usually over in 3 to 5 days. At this time, pomace formed from grape skins in red wines will have risen to the top of the brew. At the end of this fermentation, the wine is allowed to flow through a perforated bottom if pomace had been allowed. When the pomace has been separated from wine, the fermentation is complete or stopped. The next stage is racking. The wine is then transferred to a wooden cask that is around 100 to 1000 gallons, barrels about 50 gallons, or tanks several thousand gallons. The wood allows the wine only slow access to oxygen. Water and ethanol evaporate slowly, leading to air pockets which permit the growth of aerobic wine spoilers, for example, acetic acid bacteria and some yeast. The casks are therefore regularly topped up to prevent the pockets. In modern tanks made of stainless steel, the problem of air pockets is tackled by filling the air space with an inert gas such as carbon dioxide or nitrogen. Clarification: the wine is allowed to age in a period ranging from 2 years to 5 years depending on the type of wine. At the end of the period, some will have cleared naturally. For other, artificial clarification may be necessary. The addition of a fining agent is often practiced to help clarification. Fining agents react with the tannin, acid, protein, or with some added substance to give heavy, quick settling coagulants. In the process of setting, various suspended materials are absorbed. The usual fining agents for wine are gelatin, casein, tannin, agalbumin, and bentonite. In some countries, the removal of metal ions is accomplished with potassium ferrocyanide, known as blue fining. It removes excess ions of copper, iron, manganese, and zinc from wines. Packaging: before packing in bottles, the wine from various sources is sometimes blended and then pasteurized. In some wineries, the wine is not pasteurized, rather it is sterilized by filtration. In many countries, the wine is packaged and distributed in casks. Wine defects: the most important cause of wine spoilage is microbial. Less important defects are acidity and cloudiness. Factors which influence spoilage by bacteria and yeast include the following: A. Wine composition, especially the sugar, alcohol, and sulfur dioxide content. B. Storage conditions, for example, high temperature and the amount of air space in the container. C. The extent of the initial contamination by microorganism during the bottling process. When proper hygiene is practiced, bacterial spoilage is rare. When it does occur, the microorganism concerned are acetic acid bacteria, which causes sourness in the wine, lactic acid bacteria, especially Leuconostoc, and sometimes lactobacillus also spoil wines. Various spoilage yeast may also grow in wine. The most prevalent is Brettanomyces, slow growing yeast which grow in wine, causing turbidities and off flavors. Other wine spoilage yeasts are Saccharomyces oviformis, which may use up residual sugar in a sweet wine, and Saccharomyces baianus, which may cause turbidity and sedimentation in dry wines with some residual sugar. Pichia is an aerobic yeast which grows especially in young wines with sufficient oxygen. Other defects of wine include cloudiness and acidity. Wine preservation: wine is preserved either by chemicals or by some physical means. The chemicals which have been used include bisulfites, diethyl pyrocarbonate, and sorbic acid. Physical means include pasteurization and sterile filtration. Pasteurization is avoided when possible because of its deleterious effect on wine flavor. Health benefits and disadvantages of wine. Health benefits: promotes longevity. Wine drinkers have a 34% lower mortality rate than beer or spirit drinkers. Reduces heart attack risk. Moderate drinkers suffering from high blood pressure are 30% less likely to have a heart attack than non-drinkers. Lowers risk of heart diseases. Red wine tannins contain procyanidins which protect against heart disease. Wines from Sardinia and southwest France have more procyanidins than other wines. Reduces risk of type 2 diabetes. Moderate drinkers have 30% less risk than non-drinkers of developing type 2 diabetes. Lowers risk of stroke. The possibility of suffering a blood clot related stroke drops by about 50% in people who consume moderate amounts of alcohol. Cuts risk of cataracts. Moderate drinkers are 32% less likely to get cataracts than non-drinkers. Those who consume wine are 43% less likely to develop cataracts than those drinking mainly beer. Disadvantages: the negatives of wine are mainly related to the amount of alcohol swallowed, not the particularities of wine itself, with one exception: the headache caused by wine. This pain is caused by tannin, a chemical responsible for the red color and strong taste of red wine. This chemical is usually found in grape skins, so it is less common in the case of white wine. The tannin can cause migraines to those who suffer from this or can cause headaches even to people without such problems. The sensitivity to tannins varies from person to person. Other problems are related to the amount of alcohol present in the wine. This can vary from 10 to 15%. The alcohol in large quantities reduces concentration and attention. It slows the brain activity and blocks the reflexes. Its unlucky contribution is felt in all kinds of accidents, especially road accidents. The health problems associated with alcohol primarily binds to excessively or regular use. The negative health consequences includes cirrhosis, that is destruction of liver, osteoporosis, risk of cancer, high blood pressure, stomach ulcers, acute and chronic pancreatitis, and high level of triglycerides. In conclusion, the natural wine, rich in sugars, organic acids, glycerol, phenol compounds, amino acids, vitamins, that is vitamin A, B1, B2 and mineral salts, provides a highly nutritional intake and mineralizing for the body. Therefore, the wine has always been recommended for its anti-anemic, restorative, refreshing and energizing properties. However, it is still an alcoholic drink and the lack of measurement can lead to serious problems. Thank you.